What's going on, everybody? This is George Khalife, and it's episode 16 of Let's Grab Coffee. I'm here with my good friend, Sayem Reza. He's a digital marketing and comms manager at Enactus. He is, honestly, no joke, one of the best photographers I know today. Super excited to have you, Sayem. Thanks for doing this, man.
Thanks for having me, man. It's been a long time coming. I've been keeping up with your journey, and yeah, quite humbled to be here while you're starting from the bottom, I guess, right?
No, I appreciate it, and obviously you've been a great help. Especially on the sort of digital side and the things I should watch out for. Even with this podcast, you were sort of, making sure everything's right.
Yeah.
Tell us a bit about your story, man.
About my story. Okay,
Who is Sayem?
We're talking life story, everything, like broken hearts, like all that.
Whatever you want to reveal.
Okay. A lot of works are about to come out now. My story. So as George here mentioned, I'm the manager of marketing and communications at Enactus Canada. I kind of run the whole marketing and digital marketing side and web optimization and social media marketing and all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And also manage like the content creation, so the photography, the videography, and design aspects for like signage and prints and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of what I do now, but on the side as well. So this is actually kind of recent for me, but I'm a professional photographer as well. I've been kind of taking photography seriously for the past year and a half, I'd say. And this has been a hobby of mine that's been around since 2011, so around 7 years now. So I've been doing this photo thing for a while just for fun, taking photos of my friends, taking photos while I travel. I'm big into cars, like since I was a child. I've been into the automotive scene forever, like racing, cars, automotive technology, hybrid technology, whatever you gotta say. Mm-hmm. I've kind of been big into cars, so just been shooting basically anything that I enjoy, anything that I like, and just the people that I care about and people that people around my life, I've just kind of been shooting them. So in the past year or so, I've been kind of taking photography a little bit seriously. And yeah, that's kind of what I do right now at the moment. Both the job and the side hustle, they're very, very complementary in that sense. Right. Photography in of itself. It's not just me kind of hopping around, skipping around fields and taking photos. It's a very business-oriented thing. There's a lot of outreach involved. There's a lot of organization involved. And, when you are running a shoot, you got to run it professionally, but also, besides running it professionally, you got to put your client in a sort of a comfort zone, right? They're about to open up to you. They're kind of being put in front of this big, large, intimidating black lens, So yeah, there's a lot to it, and that's kind of it. Like I've just kind of been a creative dude for the past few years. I kind of discovered this whole creative side of me, and I thought I'd pursue it. I thought, if I like this stuff and it's working out and people are enjoying it too, why not make a career out of it? Why not kind of pursue stuff along those lines?
So let's talk a bit about the creative side. I know that, and maybe for those who are watching, mm-hmm. they might not know that your background is actually economics. Right?
Yeah.
When we first met in Telfer, right? I remember it, and I still knew that you had that creative arm because you were always at Telfer, and that's why I'd always be confused. I'm like, mm-hmm. Are you in business or economics?
Yeah.
What was that transition like for you from eco to marketing?
You want me to tell you my life story about like the university part, like before we met each other?
Everything, please. Okay. I need to know this too.
Okay, he needs to know this too. Yeah, man, about to cry out here. I'm not big George Khalife cry. It's not really that bad, but anyways, long story short, before university, a few of my cousins, they were kind of pursuing accounting. Okay. And I guess classic Brown family narrative, like, pursue a job, either become an accountant or a doctor or a lawyer or whatever, engineer. And that's kind of like, the narrative that you have to follow. So in high school, obviously, I don't think 18 or 17-year-old is the time to decide what you want to do for the rest of your life. But that was kind of being, for lack of better terms, like shoved down your throat, basically. Like the whole idea of pursuing those kind of careers is kind of being pushed towards you at an early age, and there's a lot of pressure amongst it. So long story short, when I was 18 around high school, I excelled in the math courses. I liked business. I had cousins who were pursuing accounting, so I was like, why not just apply to the accounting program at the University of Ottawa? Stay home, do it there. So got into the program. I was doing okay in my classes. Economics, I was excelling in. But long story short, there were points and nights where I'd be studying this kind of stuff and just like genuinely did not enjoy anything that I was doing. I'm not here to bash accounting. I'm not here to bash quantitative careers, because there are people out there for that and there are people doing great things for that too, but it just wasn't for me at the end of the day. So right around my second year, just shortly before I met you, my younger sister, she got a DSLR camera for her birthday. Very, very entry level, nothing too crazy, just kind of meant to take photos of her family and all that kind of stuff. And keep in mind, I've never shot on a camera before. So this is 2011. And around that time, I had an iPhone 4. Okay. And that time, the iPhone 4 had a camera where if you took a photo close enough of a subject, the background behind the subject would be completely blurred. And now that to me blew my mind and stuff. I take photos of like my erasers, my pencils, wouldn't study or anything. I just like kind of take photos of little objects, and the whole idea of background being blurred was just like foreign to me. So I was like, yo, this is awesome. Yo, like it's pretty cool. The day my sister got her camera, I kind of took her camera and then noticed, oh my God, this blur background thing is pretty sweet. I like it. So long story short, my sister ended up using that camera for about 3 months and then just like stored it away and never ever touched it again. It was me who was always like kind of asking her, yo, can I use your camera? Like, I just need to use it. I love this background blur effect and all that. And I started using her camera here and there, kind of doing shoots and stuff, doing shoots with my car at 17 years old, pretending I was a racer, pretending I was a gangster, kind of doing gangster poses in front of a Honda Accord.
I like it.
Yeah, so that was kind of like the beginning of it. My sister got annoyed to the point where I ended up getting my own camera. And that's kind of where it started taking off. I've always been into like music. I've always been into movies and all that kind of stuff. And this is kind of just a whole new piece of me that kind of opened up. So fast forward a few more years, I was just kind of shooting at events and all that kind of stuff. And events, as thankful as I was for them, like, you know, they kind of got me to think on my feet in terms of taking photos and editing large batches of photos at a time. As thankful as I was for them, it was something I really hated. I didn't like going into events. And
why is that?
Events.
Like, and again, why events? Not because I know a lot of people when they start their career.
They start with events in terms of photographers and stuff, right? Yeah. When it comes to events, me, at least the kind of photographer I am, I like to direct and compose an image all of my own. Like I'll have an idea of an image and I want to completely direct the idea behind it, like, you know, fix the lighting and all that kind of stuff. And I just like setting it up in my own way. When it comes to events, you got to be on your feet. You got to be ready for the next person, and you know, you're kind of shooting on the go. And that in of itself is cool and everything. But I feel like for myself, I'm more of a creative director when it comes to the photography aspect of things. So when it came to photography, I started off in events, like, you know, little school events, student events, and all that kind of stuff. And that's where I learned a lot of my editing skills and kind of met a lot of photographers at that age. But it wasn't something that I wanted to do for the rest of my life. It wasn't event photography or anything like that. So that was kind of that point there. So at this point in my life, I was, second year accounting. I was not liking it too much. And I did really well in my economics courses to the point where actually around 2 of my professors were telling me, hey, Sayem, you should probably pursue a career in economics, maybe even look into a master's and a PhD. You know, you're liking this stuff and you're doing pretty well and you're getting a good grasp of this stuff. This might be a future for you. So I've never in my life had an academic come up to me and tell me anything like that. So, you know, 19, 20-year-old Sayem, I took that in and I was like, well, this is pretty awesome. This might be the career for me. I also did a little bit of investments in my second year, and I thought, oh man, the stock market is the place for me. It's funny that we're talking about that. We're sitting in the TMX office right now, kind of talking about how it all comes full circle.
Representing.
Yeah. But yeah, so I made the whole switch to economics, but I kept my management part of Helper because I still did like the whole. I like the whole aspect of running a business and kind of want to learn from there. So kind of like a pivotal moment in my life. I'll give a shout out to an organization. I've already kind of mentioned it, but Enactus. So for those of you watching who don't know,
what is Enactus?
What is Enactus? So Enactus, it's this experiential entrepreneurship learning platform that's based all around the world, in schools all across the world, universities and colleges. And I work for Enactus Canada. So what we do is Enactus is based in schools, and there are student teams that are based in schools, and these student teams, they run outreach projects. So these projects or businesses or social enterprises, the purpose of them, they have to be social, economical, and environmental. So they have to kind of tackle the triple bottom line and be a full functioning business that helps a group of people, that is fully sustaining as a business, and that helps the environment in any way, whether that's diverting waste or whether that's recycling or anything like that. So that's in a nutshell what it is. Enactus also runs several competitions throughout a year where all the school teams kind of compete, and they present their businesses to a board of judges made up of industry experts from all around the country. Basically they compete by showing a beautiful multimedia presentation, and they report on, they present their impact that they had. So how many people they employed, you know, how many pounds of waste have they diverted, how much money was it made, is the business sustainable? So that's what Enactus is for schools. So back during our time at U Ottawa, I joined the Enactus U Ottawa team because my cousin was actually the one who founded it at U Ottawa. So he kind of preached the word of Enactus to me from a 17, 18-year-old, and I was like, stop talking to me about this weird Enactus thing. Like, I'm just trying to get into accounting and become a chartered accountant, you know?
Trying to be a CPA right
now.
Yeah,
just trying to be a CPA right now. That's the goal. But he kept kind of preaching the word of Enactus to me, and I got into it, and that organization in and of itself I guess it speaks to it now because I work for the governing organization.
Sure.
But Enactus U Ottawa, so Enactus in the University of Ottawa, that joining that organization was a huge pivotal moment for me, because that's when I started meeting very, very like-minded people, creative people, not just people who are photographers or videographers, but just social entrepreneurs, people who are kind of running their own thing, running their own game, and figuring it out as they go. And that's kind of.
Would you say that was your tipping point for getting into that creative space? Like what was that real tipping point?
The real tipping point? I'll get to it. I wouldn't say this was like kind of the introduction for it.
Okay.
Yeah, this was kind of the introduction for it. So I got into this organization named Enactus U Ottawa. We started several projects and everything. And we're students. We're like 19, 18, 20 years old. We're a couple of students starting community outreach projects, right?
Yeah.
I attribute a lot of my success, and I'm sure we're very similar in this respect, but I attribute so much of my success to just the people I surround myself with and the people that I meet. And Enactus U Ottawa was wholeheartedly and definitely a place where I met a lot of like-minded people. So I'm going to give a quick subtle shout out to one of my best friends, Vineeth. Vineeth. So Vineeth is one of my.
If you're watching this.
Yeah, if you're watching this, shout out to you. Vineeth is a good friend of mine, and at the time he was just a creative dude, just a designer and a photographer, and he was the vice president of marketing for Enactus U Ottawa. So he kind of took me under his wing. Taught me everything that he knew about photography, about design, and then this opened up a whole window of design for me. So I started becoming a graphic designer, web designer, and all that kind of stuff. Together, me and him kind of ran all the creative stuff for Enactus U Ottawa. So whenever we ran a community outreach project or a social enterprise or a business of some sort, me and Vineeth were the guys to go to come up with a logo, to come up with a PowerPoint slide, kind of design that, to take videos, to take photos. Me and Vineeth were the guys running that in the first few years. And Vineeth, man, this guy taught me almost everything. Like, I know, like when it gets down to it, he taught me a lot of the foundational stuff when it came to photography and just what it is to be a creative person in the business landscape.
What was the biggest thing that you learned from him?
The biggest thing that I learned from him, two things. It would be stay consistent in your work, like keep delivering, keep creating content. Do your best not to take long breaks, because the second you do, you kind of go into limbo. So he was the guy who kind of like pushed me, like, yo, keep creating content. And it was to the point where he hit me up at times and be like, yo, let's go for a photo shoot, just because, just for fun. And then, so he was kind of the guy who told me to stay consistent. But he was also another guy, and I owe it to him and a lot of other friends, but just seek inspiration from anywhere. Just because we're photographers, we shouldn't only seek inspiration from other photographers. We should seek it from film. We should seek it from art, from paintings, from culture.
From your environment.
From your environment, from your stories your parents tell you, your grandparents tell you, story your Lebanese friends tell you, anything like that, So seek inspiration from anywhere, man. There's beauty in everything, and when you really take your time to look at stuff, you'll find inspiration from just about anything. So those are just kind of elemental things that he taught me, and Enactus U Ottawa. So that was an organization that kind of allowed me to recognize my talents as a creative person and use it towards a better cause, if anything.
Right.
And that's where I met a lot of like-minded people.
What propelled you forward, I guess.
What propelled me forward. Yeah. So fast forward about 4 years now. So remember that thing I told you about how we run national competitions?
Yes.
So Enactus does this thing where the whole country runs competitions where they present their businesses, and all the schools kind of compete against each other. And then around every May, we run a national competition. So all the schools from across Canada kind of compete. And whoever wins that national one goes to the world competition, and the world one is like a big deal.
Right.
It's kind of like the best teams from all around the world are kind of competing and kind of showcasing the impact that they've made in their countries and in their communities. And what's cool about it is that there's problems are diverse from community to community to country to country, right? So you're learning a lot as you go. But so we're at this national competition. We're around a 4 or 5 year old team at that time, and one quick note to mention about this national competition, it's tough. Like you're staying up, you're producing these wonderful 17-minute multimedia presentations with full-fledged script and everything going for it. And we're students, we're kids doing this stuff.
You still have exams, everything.
Yeah, we still have exams going on. We're still working part-time jobs at Fido. I'm selling cell phones on the side while creating these multimedia presentations.
Hustle.
Yeah, it's all about the hustle, right?
Yeah.
So this was going on, and the national competition rolled around. And one thing you should know about the national competition, so for around as long as Enactus has been in Canada, there have been like up to 3 to 2 teams that have been winning these competitions back and forth. U Ottawa, we're a brand new team. We've only been around for 5 years. Like, who are we to kind of take this title, It was between these 2 teams that kind of won and are historically just like top tier teams in the projects and the businesses they develop and the students that they develop. So that year we ended up actually winning the national competition. So when you keep asking me what was the pivotal moment where you kind of realized that this creative thing was the thing to do, that was it. And wow. It gave me the ultimate validation. You know, like me and our team of people, and we kind of stayed up night after night, hardly any sleep, just preparing for this competition. And in the grand scheme of things, it seems small now because, you know, I have my career and everything, but at that time as a student, it was our whole lives. We were putting blood, sweat, and tears into this kind of thing. It meant a lot for me at the time. And again, like there's impact with it too. And, you know, we're affecting a lot of people, and it's just awesome to kind of put it into a presentation and stuff. So yeah, we ended up winning that competition. First time Ottawa ever won that at that national competition. Yeah. Again, just to kind of reiterate, we were an underdog team. Like we were only 5 years old. We were going up against teams that have had established programs and businesses for up to 15 to 10 years. And here we are, the new kids on the block, kind of winning it. So that was like a giant moment for me and the team and Ottawa altogether. It was like, I look back to it as one of the best years of my life. You know, we're only going forward from here, but like that's at least a much more pivotal moment in my life, and not just for me. Like one of my friends, Kathleen, who was the president at the time, her career has taken off in terms of shout out to Kathleen. Her career has taken off in terms of being just a force to be reckoned with in the social enterprise scene.
I love what she's doing as well.
Yeah. And Vineeth has taken off to one of my good friends, Hannah. She's a consultant down in Saskatoon now, working with a lot of Indigenous populations. It's like that these people, like besides like us having that Enactus bond, like we've gone above and beyond, and we've just done great things, and we've stayed true to the stuff that like get us up in the morning and make us want to do this, right? These are stuff we love. This is stuff we care about. So these people, I'm gonna keep going back to it, man. Like it's your people.
They were the foundation.
Well,
it's like what they say, right? Your environment's made up of the 5 people you spent your
exactly. It's the most cliche thing, but I am made up of the first 5 to 20 to whatever people that I spend time with. You know, like I'm super thankful for the people I'm surrounded by, but yeah, that would be the time, the pivotal moment in my life where it kind of started taking off. Like to provide context, when you win a national competition, kind of like the whole country in terms of at least the Enactus partners and the network and the many donors and, you know, the many media that are posting about it, they kind of get to know who you are and stuff, right? So
the exposure is there.
The exposure is huge, and the validation was huge for me. You know?
So one thing on the validation side, you got the validation from the competition, from your close environment.
Yeah.
And I know you touched up on family, but I do want to, just because it's very it's probably at the peak of what you're talking about now, but
how backtrack a bit.
Yeah, because that's important though. And I know we talked about this on the side, not on the podcast yet, but your family's super important to you, right? So you're originally from Bangladesh. And I do want you to talk about that, but was that an important validation for your parents as well?
Okay, this is a whole other tangent. You ready for this?
But I do want to get into this because it relates to what you're saying.
Yeah, totally. So Enactus aside, I guess. So my family story. My dad. So my family's from Bangladesh. My dad moved here in 1982. He's been here just a bit over 30 years now. And yeah, he just kind of, I guess he just like looked at a map, spun a globe, and was like, Grenada. Shout out Russell Peters. And he just kind of chose Canada to come to. So he immigrated here to Montreal back in '82. Kind of like, you know, started from the bottom, as we want to say, like pure immigrant story. He worked as a busboy in restaurants every now and then. And then he kind of picked up on knowledge on some of these restaurants and what to do in the background. And he ended up launching his own restaurant way back in 1986. So it's this Indian restaurant called Mughal Indian Restaurant on Rita Street back in Ottawa. And it's been operating for over 30 years now. And besides that, him and his brothers, my uncles, they all kind of started up their own restaurants, and we all kind of run this whole family business with that. He dabbled in property management as well, where he had an apartment building and he kind of rented it out and everything. And my dad's like the true testament of like landing in this country with nothing but just 20 takas in his pocket. Like, you know, he'll always like pull me aside and tell me these stories. Oh, I used to walk to school and have to fight tigers. And I was like, Dad, you're on here. Like, I can't relate. I can't relate right now. There are no tigers now. There are no tigers. The worst thing out there, like groundhogs. I don't know. Like, we deal with that model, right? But no, my dad, side note, like he's just a giant inspiration for me, right? Like left everything back there, figured his way out here, and I'm very lucky. I'm very, very fortunate to say this. Like the Bengali community in Ottawa is very, very small. I like to think that 10% of the Bengali community is directly my family.
Wow.
I'm very fortunate to say that my dad managed to bring all of his brothers here and my mom's siblings as well here. And we all live here and we're all good. And all of us kids are growing up here in Canada and stuff. And I have a giant family, and my family's everything to me, man. They're my inspiration. They're people I go to when I'm feeling down. And they're just the ones that keep me going. Like before my friends, before, you know, my good friends who inspire me, they were the ones who were always there. So yeah, they're everything to me. So going back to the point of how did my family kind of validate my creative ventures, if you may. Yeah, going into university, I was pursuing the accounting degree just because my 2 older cousins were, and my dad was
probably happier about that.
Yeah, right? Very good, very good. So dad was very happy about that. Mom was very happy about that too. They recognized that I wasn't enjoying the career too much, and to be honest with you, when I started playing around with my sister's camera and I started taking photos and stuff, they were very hesitant to the point where it was like saying, have fun with this stuff. Like, you go around, play with your camera with your friends, and jump around fields and have fun. But just like, take it easy. Like, it's not going to sustain a life for you. You got to figure something out. Accounting is the way to go. Look at your 2 cousins. Like, I'm sure, like, immigrant background too. Did you have like your parents always go back like to those like pinpoint that one cousin in your life, and do your parents always bring up this one cousin? Like, yeah,
or just a benchmark in general. But keep in mind, I think as you pointed out, like, it's not that they don't care. I mean, they're doing it because they care for you.
For sure. But it comes from a place of endearment.
Exactly. Right? And they're just trying to be defensive. And their benchmark, like, dude, 20, 30 years ago, especially, coming from where our parents came from, if you say digital marketing or building a business on Instagram, my mom and my dad would be like, I mean, now they understand it more, obviously, with all of the context. But I mean, to your point, if you just come to your parents and say, Mom, I'm launching this business on Insta, or I have this Shopify website, they'll probably just pass out like,
I'm disowning you.
That's it. You're
worth less than 2 goats.
It's
but there's definitely context. Yeah. I'm not trying to, like, bash their story. They have my best interest in mind at the end of the day. But it's definitely a thing of, like, there's a cultural gap, right? It just didn't make sense to them.
But that's hard though.
It's hard. It's tough.
It was hard for you to just to navigate through it.
For sure.
Being respectful for your parents on one end, but also really wanting to pursue your sort of goals and aspirations, right?
Yeah.
And bridging the gap by proving to them that this is I'm not doing this just for jokes. Like, I'm serious about this.
For sure. Totally.
So how'd you go about doing that? Like, because I bet you, man, so many people watch this, including myself. Like, we've been through this.
Yeah.
And so I love hearing how people navigate.
Yeah. So yeah, I dealt with it a lot, and like, besides, like, having immigrant parents and everything, like, I'm also just very, very close to my parents. Like, I'm very open to them, and I talk to them about everything. And when it got down to those conversations, there would be nights and stuff where I tell them, hey man, like, Mom, Dad, like I'm enjoying this photography thing. Like, I'm finally, for once, like, doing something that I solely enjoy, and other people love to see it as well. And like, it might be a partial option for me. And as that kind of went on, they just, one thing that they wanted to see was just to me to kind of prove myself to them. Kind of like, they're putting me to the test. Like, if I'm going to pursue this thing, make it worthwhile. Like, show them some stuff that, like, show them some proof that this will actually lead me to a good life, and like, be happy with you and everything like that. They didn't immigrate here in the 1980s for nothing. Like, I got to deliver. I got some families to take care of. Long story short, they just basically wanted me to, like, prove to them that this will work out.
Right.
So
show me, don't tell me.
Show me, don't tell me. Like, you're all talking right now, saying you got to show me some stuff. Another thing, back to the Bengali community, it's a very, very small community back in Ottawa. Like, my dad's very known in the community, and back when we kind of go to events and stuff, the standard thing at these Bengali things would be like, oh, this is my son George. Yes, he's studying finance. He's graduating in 2 years, and that's all we were, right?
Your resume, like,
your resume. You're like just setting you up for marriage, right? That's kind of like that's kind of your go-to introduction. And like, whenever my dad would introduce me to other people in the community or his friends or whatever, I was always, oh yeah, I'm studying economics and management, looking to do a career probably with the Bank of Canada or something like that. That's kind of what that was my go-to introduction, right? Wow. I was like putting on a whole, like, lie. I was living a lie for a bit. Not a lie. I was still studying, but, like, it wasn't something that it wasn't something that I wanted to do at the end of the day, right?
You almost have to put on a mask just to, I guess, please
the community, and just like ultimately make my family happy, right? Because like, it matters. Like, as much as it sucks, like, within our communities at least, like, it does matter. But I'm not to say that this is the way everyone should do it. This is just the way I did it, and thankfully it worked out for me. But I kind of went with that, and anytime I'd be introduced, like, that would be my kind of, like, quick biodata marriage introduction. It's study. This is what I study. Blah blah. I'm gonna work in the Bank of Canada. I get benefits. This will be the way to do it. As time progressed, as Enactus kind of developed, as I met Vineeth and everything like that, like, my parents kind of started seeing, like, hey, he's not just having fun with it anymore. he's taken a bit more seriously now. Where Sayem is not home anymore. He's like spending 5 a.m. at campus with his other friends working on this kind of stuff, editing and all that kind of stuff. They'd even I mean,
they probably saw one that you were happy, but also one that most of your free time was going to this thing, and it was even at that time it was still a side hustle for you. Right, but you still were going like 100%.
Yeah. I was again studying, selling cell phones at Fido, and then doing this. Right, spending my whatever hours remained of the day to do this. My grandparents lived with me as well, and they'd like my grandpa he does this thing where he does a nightly 2 a.m. shift to make sure we're all asleep and in our beds and stuff.
The sheriff.
Yeah, just the sheriff, but not in an aggressive sense, just checking to see if we're alive, you know. He always like walking on like me in my room, just doing my thing, working, editing, whatever, working on prospects or working on graphic design and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, at a young age, he just saw me kind of working there every now and then, and he'd kind of be like my he'd be the informant to my parents, like, hey, I know you guys are fast asleep at 2 a.m., but
Red Rover.
Red Rover. I know you guys are fast asleep, but at 2 a.m. Sayem is working. But yeah, another thing, like my grandpa would always like, kind of check up on me, and they saw right in front of their faces that I was actually putting.
They saw the action.
They saw the action. I was all talk at one point. Now they saw the work going on. Right.
What was so on this too? So we talked a bit about the challenge. Let's talk a bit about maybe the positivity of it. What was the proudest moment you had with your parents in that transition phase for you?
In the transition phase, for me?
like I have a sort of proud moment for me, but because I know everybody as they're going through that sort of obstacle or that hurdle, something happens, whether it's that tipping point or whatever, that one validates, but that two, your parents look at you and you say, you know what, man, like I know we've had doubts and whatever, but I finally see what you're doing, and I'm full support. Did you have a time like that? Maybe not, but I'm just wondering.
Oh, totally, I did. Yeah. And I already mentioned it. So it was the time I wanted Enactus Naturals.
So that was it too.
That was it for me. Yeah.
I was trying to think, like, so your parents probably saw you.
They saw me, and then they knew what I was working for, and then I told them, Mom, I'm going to Toronto, I'm going to go to this competition. And then it was like, yeah, sure, just make sure you come back before midnight on Monday. And I did it. And the moment we won, they were definitely the first people I called, telling them I won it. And then I like to think that my parents, they kind of acted like they didn't care too much, but in the background they were keeping up with my shit. They were like, keeping up with it, actually reading up on it and all that kind of stuff. And it was a moment that I called them. They were like, wow, thank goodness. And in our culture, in Muslim culture, we probably say mashallah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's like the greatest honor when your parent kind of says that to you and validates it for you. And
it's almost saying like it's like a descriptive, like wow.
Yeah, it's like wow, like
with a religious connotation.
Exactly. So they said that, like my mom, like mashallah. They just like kept saying that on the phone and everything, and passed it to my dad. My dad, for the first time in his life as a brown dad, Sayem, wow, good job, son. So it was that moment, definitely. And it was, again, another tipping point for me. It was at that point where now when we go to these events and stuff, my parents, first thing they say, oh, my son, he's a national champion for the country. Acting like I'm going to the Olympics or something. Like my son, Olympics. But yeah, like the first point of conversation. And the only reason I'm using this whole Bengali community introduction thing, it's just like a little placeholder topic, just to kind of show the contrast. Before this pivoting point, my parents would introduce me as the economics student. Now it was like, oh, my son, he's a marketer. He won a national competition. Now he's representing Canada at the World Cup in South Africa. It was in South Africa at the time, the World competition. So my son's going with his team to South Africa.
But it also has such a bigger, I guess, moral to the story too. Like you're using the whole context, because I think people need to understand the sort of the background of what you had to go through, because I don't think they'll understand the severity of it. And not that it was like dramatic. There was severity, but of course there is, man. It's difficult, especially when you're super attached to your parents, and that means a lot to your culture, as it is for me. But and you really want to make them happy, you want to prove to them, but at the same time, you also want to be happy and do something you enjoy. And so that divide, man, is super difficult, but I think very important to talk to. That's why I wanted to raise it up. So okay, let's talk about this now. We talked about Enactus. We talked a bit about overcoming your.
This is all pre-22 years old.
So I do want to come to what's going on now.
Right?
You have your camera on the left. Bring it up. I want to
show people. The show?
I want to show people this.
Okay.
Sayem's masterpiece here.
This is my Nikon. I sometimes call her Nikki, I guess. Nikki the Nikon. Yeah, this is my baby. This is what I do all my work with. This is kind of behind the scenes. I'm not allowed to do this to expose the secret.
No, go for
We're actually using my lens here as a mic mount.
It's the hustle, man.
It's the hustle. It's all about the hustle. You got to make it work somehow. Yeah.
Trying to make whatever happen.
Trying to make it work. This is all a front. This all looks so professionally done, but there's a lens holding this right now. We're actually on the street on Adelaide. This is a MacBook filming us. It's all a front.
You got to start somewhere, right?
But no, I admire the hustle. But yeah. So I guess present time, yeah, right?
Yeah, present time.
Yeah.
So your camera. Tell us a bit about, okay, so from Enactus to now, sort of starting your own thing. You created a website. You started launching this portfolio of pictures that you were putting together. Some for the auto sector, some just.
Oh, okay.
I want to sort of talk a bit about that because I think a lot of people watching this, and I know they enjoy photography, but a lot of them either don't know how to make it a legitimate career for them, or to get into the business of photography. So let's start there. I'll let you sort of pivot, and then we'll figure it out.
I'll transition from what we were talking about before to how I got to this. So graduation comes along. I'm looking for jobs everywhere, and I'm applying to nothing but marketing jobs. Like I finally figured it out. Like this is what I want to do. And because we won that national competition, there's a governing office called Enactus Canada that governs all the teams and their startups, and they provide entrepreneurship programming, and they run the program across the country and run these competitions and all that kind of stuff, right? So the Enactus Canada, the office, they were actually expanding their team, and they were expanding their marketing team, and because I was the national champion, and again, another pivotal moment. Because I was the national champion, I became very close with the president of the organization, and the director of programs. So I became very close with them. We were very close friends and everything. And when they were expanding their marketing team, one of the members of the office kind of just reached out to me. He's like, "Sayem, this role is like made for you, basically. It's made for you, man. Like, we're wondering if you'd be interested." And at this time, I was only applying to jobs in Ottawa. Like, again, going back to being the family man, I was mama's boy, lived at home my whole life. I was not ready to leave my house by any means necessary. But one of my good friends at Enactus Canada, she reached out to me and she said, "This new manager of marketing and communications role, we just kind of created it and we wanted to try it out, and it's a role that like will work with you. It just like fits you. We've been watching you. We've been growing you. We've been nurturing you. Now come work for us." Basically. Good fellows at Enactus Canada kind of reached out to me, launched a short interview after interview. I got the job. So that is kind of my role right now. I'm manager of marketing and communications there. And that got me, so another pivotal moment, that was the one that forced me to move to Toronto. So here we are in Toronto now. It was a full-on creative job. It was a wonderful job that like helped me use my creativity, but also for a better purpose. And it's also the job where I learned all the formalities of marketing. So go back to, I did not study marketing by any means, right? This is all, I learned it all myself. This is the job that taught me all the formalities of it. I have this wonderful director of marketing. Her name's Jen Falzon. Very experienced in the whole marketing scene across Toronto. And she kind of took me under her wing and like slapped me with the reality, basically, like kind of taught me all how it works and everything. And going from a city like Ottawa to the marketing scene in Toronto, it's a ginormous jump, right? So she taught me everything I need to know. And again, this is where I learned the formalities, how to do things, how to run things.
The business of marketing.
The business of marketing, the business side of it. This is where my education, if anything, came from. Besides U Ottawa and the Enactus U Ottawa part. But she taught me a lot of it. Here we are in Toronto. I moved to Toronto when I was 23 years old. Whole new city. Hardly knew anybody. I had a few friends from Ottawa that kind of moved here at the same time. Another subtle shout out to another good friend of mine. It's a girl named Emily Lorenzo. She went to U Ottawa with us. So Emily, what's up? Emily is a girl that went to school with me and George. And she was kind of known as the other photographer in the school, at least. I like to think during our time, there were 3 photographers in Telford, myself, Denise, and Emily, right? So Emily, it was anytime we saw each other at university, like we weren't friends or anything in university. It was like the most quick, small talk, awkward conversation, like, "Hey, nice photo, bye." Just like, that's it, nice photo, bye. It was just like the most, like, we were not that we hated each other or anything, we just like weren't friends. Like, we weren't close friends in university by any means. But when I lived in Ottawa, whenever I wanted to go on shoots, Vineeth was my go-to guy when it came to shooting and everything. And he still is my go-to guy, Vineeth, if you're watching. When I moved to Toronto, I didn't have a person to kind of go and do photo shoots with. And you're in a giant, beautiful city with giant landscapes and giant buildings and so much to see in a flourishing art scene and a flourishing photography scene. I definitely wanted to dive into it, but I just think I needed a friend to do it with, and I just was just too intimidated to do it on my own.
Also, makes it fun if you have someone to share.
It's fun to have someone to share it with. Emily, one of the biggest blessings in my life, like becoming a friend with that girl. yeah, one day, just another friend of ours was in town, Diana, if you're watching. Big fan of Diana. We like Diana. But Diana kind of just said, hey, Emily wants to grab brunch. Let's grab brunch. I was like, all right, cool. We grabbed brunch. We started, and then me and Emily immediately just took off, hit it off. Just started talking about photography, about not just photography, but the whole creative scene, just design, art, culture, hip hop, like
how you're actually passionate about it.
We're passionate about this stuff, right? So hip hop culture, all that kind of stuff. We kind of hit it off, and then after that brunch, that was kind of it. We just basically started organizing a list of just things that we want to shoot in Toronto, and this is just purely for fun, no business, no nothing.
And mostly these are places.
Okay. Kind of. How
did you find them? Like what?
Yo, man, Instagram. Instagram is a photographer's LinkedIn.
Yeah,
that's the way I put it.
I want to talk about that.
Yeah. But long story short, we basically drafted a whole list of just locations across Toronto and inspiration photos. So we create like kind of mood boards and stuff with photos that we want to go to, and we had.
So wait, you envision these pictures or like?
No, we'd find photos. We find photos of other photographers. So we had like a set of photographers that we idolize. Like there were on Insta, yeah. And these are
some names.
These are giant guys. I don't know them, but someday I will. Alan Palander, he's one of my like idols. He's just a giant photographer on Instagram. Has a bunch of partnerships with a bunch of brands that I love too. Chris Howe, he's another guy. Peter McKinnon. Follow all of them. They're just wonderful at what they do.
Cool.
But yeah, these are all guys. Like besides being incredible photographers, these are guys from Toronto. They're Canadian. They're in the same shoes as me at one point.
Love it.
Yeah, me and Emily had kind of these photographers that we idolize, and we kind of follow their pages, and then we started following their work, and we were like, you know, your biggest inspirations, like you kind of, when you want to become something, you kind of pursue like someone else is kind of already doing it.
Well, you try to model something,
right? You model it after someone else has done it, and then you kind of add your own thing to it, make your own thing out of it, right? So those are our guys. So yeah, we create these like mood boards out of Alan Palander's photos, out of Chris Howe, out of all these photographers, and we kind of like be like, hey, how do we achieve these photos? Emily is someone who like I can think of, like one of the only, like there's a set group of these people, but one of the people that I don't spend, like I talk to literally every day. Like there's not a day that doesn't go by where we're not talking to each other. Yeah, we basically talk all the time about how to develop these photos, how to take our photos to the next level, how do we achieve certain effects and certain compositions, and how do we tell stories with our images, and how do we do all that kind of stuff. So when I was living in Ottawa, I was kind of taking photos just to make them look cool and kind of like, you know, get a few likes on Facebook. When I moved to Toronto, when I met Emily, when we started following after all these photographers, when we started organizing a list of it,
it became serious.
It became serious. That's when we started saying like, hey, what kind of moods do we convey with our photos? There's a psychology behind the colors that you use and the tones that you use. The composition, if you look at a photo and the street is going like this, you know, there are composition lines that lead to a certain subject in the photo, like the science behind it, and what constructs a perfect photo. Why are these people so successful? It's because they're following all these rules that have been around for ages, right? So this is when we started taking it a bit more seriously, started hitting up all these locations and stuff. And then after a bit, I got myself a full-frame professional camera, kind of upgraded my gear. That's Nikki over here. Wilson, my lens here. Yeah, I got my professional camera, and then we just started taking photos. And
where did you, can I just ask really quickly? Yeah. Because I think people are wondering. Yeah. Where did you learn the technicalities? So you're discussing it with Emily, right?
Yeah.
And you're sharing ideas and stuff. Are you using like a site, like, or are you just playing around with the camera yourself? Are you looking at the manual? Like, what is your...
A bit of everything, but I attribute it to a few things. So the foundational stuff that my friend Vinny taught me years ago.
Okay, that's the base.
That's the base.
Okay.
All the new stuff, it's experimental, but when it really gets down to it, man, we live in an age where so much is accessible.
Right.
So much is accessible.
No excuses.
No excuses, basically. You can learn everything online. I'm purely self-taught. I've never taken any photography course or anything. I've learned it all.
Which is hilarious to be like, in a positive way, because like this is also so difficult. I mean, to be honest, man, like if I was to be behind that, terrible photos. You know, it's so. So one, you have a passion for it, but a lot of it you're saying is just go and do it. Like you can't sit there and analyze and wait for the best moment, the best time. You just got to be out there, play around, try different things,
and do it.
And just
do it. Like there's only so much planning and sitting around in a room and like Excel spreadsheets that you can do. You just gotta get out there and do it. And in terms of learning a lot of the technicalities, honestly, YouTube tutorials and you know, the people we mentioned earlier, Alan, Peter, Chris Howe, those guys, they set up tutorial videos all the time. So the people,
so they have YouTube channels.
Exactly, they have YouTube channels, and they're setting up tutorials, and just follow all the creators. Just be immersed in this community of creators. That
put yourself in that community.
Put yourself in that community. There's an abundance of it in the city, right? So definitely dive right into it and just talk to people. Like you'd be surprised once you start growing your network and stuff like that. And you know, you're at an event or you're kind of going out shooting, and someone brings their friend along who's also a photographer. You'll end up meeting some of the most diverse people who will help you with that kind of stuff. Like, you know, you'll be editing your photo in front of them, and that person you just met 5 minutes ago, he'll tell you to do this, and then you'll try it, and they're like, oh my god, that's a whole new thing. And then that's kind of, you're just kind of learning as you go. So learn from people. I learned from definitely online tutorials. But
can I also add one thing to this? Is actually try to create value for other people. So I think like a lot of people who are trying to use Insta to, you know, I guess to start their account, their photography business. The best thing you can do, like when you're trying to DM people, you know, and serious photographers, like, yes, you have the big sort of idols, if you want to call them, like people who you aspire to become. But even before that, in Toronto, there's a huge list of really, really good photographers that if you just DM and be like, hey man, can I just shadow you? You know, hey, how's it going? Like would love to just spend a day with you or share some ideas. Like if you create a value up front versus just ask for something, like if I just DM you and say, hey, Sai, you know, can you take my LinkedIn photo? And you're like, well, okay, like maybe I'll do it if it's a good, you know, if you're a good friend, but what's in it for me? Like, so what value are you creating? Versus like if we're doing a podcast and we're creating value and it's sort of reciprocal, then I think you have a bigger door to large opportunities. You know,
this transcends not just photography to any side of business.
That's what I'm trying to say.
Reach out to anyone for anything. Give them some value back as well. Don't just try and take and go away, right? You're the one reaching out, so don't just try and take and that's it. It has to be reciprocal, but also has to be human. You gotta talk about.
It's not always transactional.
It's not transactional. You know, hey George, I love what you've been doing with your podcast all these days. I saw episodes 15 the other day and was really inspired by you. You're doing a great job with your stuff. Could we grab some coffee and talk about stuff and kind of launch the podcast? Like, you know, just like talk about it. You kept up with them, you researched them, and all that kind of stuff. So going back to our growth plan, we started reaching out to a few influencers. Emily did a lot of it, and we were, lo and behold, we were immersed in this community. We were meeting some of the bigger photographers of Toronto. We were becoming friends with them. These are people that we aspired to be, and now they're friends with us. Like we're talking to them, we're DMing each other all the time on a daily basis. We were immersed in this community, and then long story short, fast forward a few months, I got my own professional camera, and I started just launch my own photography gig on the side. I launched my own website.
I remember you were working on it.
I launched my own website, and it's kind of a weird thing when a photographer launches a website. I feel like that's kind of like a serious thing. That's when you start.
You were super serious about it.
So I launched a website, and thankful for all my friends that did it. They all shared it. A bunch of my friends shared it, and like lo and behold, like I sent on any marketing. It was all word of mouth. Like, a lot of word of mouth clients came my way. I've been doing it professionally for about 1.5 years now, and just word of mouth. Like I've hardly spent a cent on anything.
But you know why though? Why? Because I think so. One of the things that you did well, and this is advice I give to a lot of people, is try to build your personal brand first. You know, and by personal brand, I don't mean like, I think a lot of people have this weird misconception around, you know, you're doing this just to build your personal brand or to enhance your resume. No, your personal brand in today's world is using platforms like Insta, like LinkedIn, like YouTube to communicate your story with people. Right, what you're about, who you are, what things that you're passionate about, what's your purpose here, like whatever that means for you. You know, and then if you do that enough times, and if you create that value for people, and if you're pushing things that people really want to see, eventually they'll have your back. I mean, that's what creates fans versus just like a client of yours, right? Like actual fans of sign, like
people keep up with you, right? And they'll support you and everything.
Fans, friends, you know,
and people who will genuinely share your content and all that kind of stuff. And I'm more than thankful to have fans per se and followers that help me out with that.
But you've done it as well for other people, dude. Like I know you've had my back for a lot of my content. Like as a quick example, right? When I was launching my podcast, even the like Bookback, the app that I'm working on the side, you reached out to me without even me asking. You're like, dude, look, love what you're doing. I do see some things you can improve on. I'd love to help. Honestly, like you reached out to me, and so you created that value for me. And so, I mean, how can I not? If for example, one day you want something, how can I not have your back?
Totally.
That's what I mean by value creation. Not reciprocation in the transactional sense, but just create value for people in your community. You know,
and in the marketing world, people are more likely to follow you if someone they know kind of promoted them. You know, that's where a lot of my clientele came from, and it's
mostly
been great.
Instagram,
Mostly Instagram, and we're talking just like more or less personal portrait shoots and all that kind of stuff, but that wasn't the end goal for me, and it wasn't the end goal for Emily as well, who I shot with a lot of time. The end goal was ultimately just like, influencer clients, corporate clients, and just like clients that we have passions within. So going back to me, I'm a big guy with cars when it comes to cars. I love cars. Lamborghini, Ferrari, Aston Martin.
Knows everything about cars. Like a big
nerd,
car nerd.
Like a nerd. Like, I'm down to have a podcast on my own to talk about cars even. But yeah, big car nerd. Besides cars, I'm a ginormous hip hop head. Like big
Really?
into music, consume a lot of music. And besides that, just a big fan of just culture and traveling. And I traveled a lot through Enactus. I've been
Morocco recently.
Morocco, South Africa, Iceland, China, Germany. Kind of been up all over the place. And I just genuinely enjoy culture. Like whenever I travel, I like to meet people and figure out their food, their dresses, everything. So again, these are just points of my passion that I'm into.
So what you're really saying is, is find the things that you really like,
mm-hmm.
and use photography, I guess, to go towards those things. So just because it's maybe the sexy thing right now to look at cars and to take pictures of cars doesn't mean I should do it because you're doing it. I think that's a good lesson for people. Just to understand the context, right?
Like obviously do your thing, find your clients or do whatever you gotta do. But my biggest advice, it's worked for me, it's worked for many people I know. If you are going to start your own thing, whether it's in photography or whatever it is, just go towards clients that you have some sort of a draw to, a passion about. So
why is that? Why do you think that is?
Man, there's nothing more than a genuine connection between you and your client. That's one thing I have to say. I like to think that I have an ability to connect with people, and it's not surface level, and it's not an ability that I have. It's something that you develop. Over the years, again, I have all these different passions. I'm into film, cuisine, everything. I read a lot of books about a lot of different people from all walks of life. I'll read a Nelson Mandela book one day. I'll read a Elon Musk book the other day. I'll read about Gucci Mane the other day, stuff like that. Just diversifying, an F1 racer, and it's just good to have those hone those interests and just have this diverse background, just so whenever you meet a new person, you can strike up a conversation, and it's not a BS conversation. You're just having a genuine conversation,
and that's probably something we need more of, to be honest. Just to be genuine. When we did the shoot together, and that's what I love about you, dude. And you talked a bit about professionalism as well, but I mean, you're very serious about it. When we were there was no. It's not like we're not there to joke. We're both serious about it. So we were there. It was on top. We did our thing. 30 minutes here, 30 minutes here. We grabbed a coffee, but we also talked about a personal story. We essentially did this podcast twice.
Second time doing it.
So I like that point that you're
genuine connections are everything in this life, man. In this world where everyone is online and there's so much noise out there, I'm a firm believer in just having genuine connections with people, being true, having a real relationship with people. Nothing surface level.
Can I ask you something as well? As you built and still are building and improving your Instagram game, one of the things that I think a lot of people are curious about is, obviously, I guess the follower count is always important, right? I mean, on surface level, right? Now, we're talking about value creation, being genuine, but the issue is in digital impressions, when you first, and everybody does this. I mean, I know you're going to look at me and say, oh, George, come on, but isn't it true, when you first go on an account and you see 20K, you're like, this is legit. You haven't even seen anything. And I don't know if these are bot followers, ghosts, whatever. I'm not into that stuff, but how do you maintain that truth to your passion in your game without succumbing to these these things on the surface,
So I guess how it works for me, and this is going to be different for everybody else. Everyone runs it differently, but personally, how it works for me, a lot of the content you'll see on my feed spring from my passion. So again, going back to cars, you see a lot of cars in it. You see a lot of architecture in it. You see a lot of my friends. I'm big into portrait shoots and I'm big into fashion as well. So you see a lot of people doing stuff in their outfits and stuff. And my feed is an extension of me as a person. That's kind of how I explain it.
Are you telling your stories in pictures? Is that what you're trying?
I like to tell my stories in pictures, but I like to have fun with my pictures too. I like to joke around every now and then too. But going back to what you said about when people get to your account, were you asking if they see 20K followers as opposed to 1K followers? Following you? So how do you get them to follow you?
Well, yeah. So how are you?
How do you form a genuine connection?
Yeah. So how are you developing your Instagram while staying true to the game without succumbing to things like, oh, I need 100,000 followers to be legit?
Okay. Just trust the process, man. Just be patient. Yeah, be patient. Again, I post content that I only think is the best fit. Other photographers do this differently, and all the power to them. But me, I like to only put out photos that I think is only top notch. And then I
spend a lot of time editing.
It's a lot of time, super perfectionist and top notch and everything. And once you put it out there, put your story on there. Captions to other people, they're just captions, but to us marketing folks, to us photographers, it's the bigger picture of everything. You got to put your story out there, and then as people follow you, as people are looking through your feed, scrolling through it, and they see that your photos are awesome, but not only that, there's funny captions along with it too. They get a piece of your personality in there, and then if I can always get that genuine follower who's all into me and all into my personality and all into my work, that's worth more to me than 100,000 followers and all that kind of stuff.
Dude, that's so important. Can I just make a point on this too?
Yeah.
There's something called, especially in social, it's the engagement ratio. So if you see like 20,000 followers, the quickest way to see if it's real or not, go to a picture and go to maybe 5 or 6.
This guy knows.
You know, get a consensus and see the likes on a picture or the views on a video. And so if there's 20,000, followers, but there's like 30 likes on a picture,
chances are either they're fake or the people really don't care about it.
Exactly. So they're not engaging enough, and if you don't pivot, you're just doing the same thing that people don't give a shit about. So the market doesn't really care, man. You have to align. Like, yes, follow your passion stuff, but I think what you're also saying is put out something people really want to see. And you can, like, I've made so many pivots too. When I started my YouTube channel, I started with a certain narrative, and I had to pivot while staying true to what I want to put out, which is positive content, sharing stories, experiences, my lessons, and whatever. But you also saw on LinkedIn like how I've been pivoting, because you also have to make it work. I mean, if you're trying to build a community, you need to put out something the community wants to see. One of the things too, I was going to ask for your pictures on Insta and stuff. Maybe more for, because like I love the DSLR game, but not everybody's on this level. I'm surely not. I use like this for most of my pictures, right? I'm a pretty simple guy when it comes to that stuff. What apps can people use to actually edit pictures on it?
Edit pictures? Oh, from your phone?
Your phone.
Oh man, for the photographers that know it, there's the Visco app that's go-to, I guess. What's it called?
Lightspeed.
What's it called? There's a Google one. Here, let me just quickly look, because I actually don't edit that many photos on my phone.
That is interesting.
Yeah, I don't. You'd be surprised.
Probably asking the wrong.
Wrong person.
Well, they're more on the DSLR.
Yeah. So there's Snapseed. There's Visco. Snapseed. For those who have a subscription to Adobe Suite, there's the Lightroom app as well, but this is for a bit more of the pros.
I said Lightspeed, so I combined.
Yeah, you combined two. Yeah. Those are a few of the apps and everything. Yeah. There's a lot you can do. Going back to my story about how I started on an iPhone 4 just because I was obsessed with blurred backgrounds. That's where it started. But if you want to start taking it seriously and you just don't have the budget in place for a professional camera yet, start on your phone. There's so many. You'd be surprised. There's so many influencers and people out there and creatives out there that only still post from, like, they have 100,000 followers. They're only posting on their phones and stuff, and it works out for them.
Have you seen what Domino's is doing, by the way? I share the story with a lot of people too, but like, so I am a fan of obviously super quality pictures. I mean, there's always a place for that. If you guys haven't checked out, go to Domino's Instagram. I'm not promoting pizza right now. I'm trying to stay fit, but like, why I like them, and I read an article about what they're doing. They have millions of followers, but their pictures are real. What I mean by real is they literally open up a pizza box, take the iPhone, just snag a picture.
No studio lighting, nothing,
and literally post it. Like, I think they're even using the native camera app on Instagram.
Okay.
They're posting it as is because they're trying to say, like, look,
this is it.
This is how you're gonna find it when it gets delivered to your door. Versus the perfect lighting and like you'll see the sort of smoke coming out and everything. And so they kept it super real. So that is also a strategy to use. We talked a bit about this, like the podcast. I'm using my Mac to film this right now. I'm using a pretty like reasonable microphone that's hooked onto your tablet. So I think it's also important if you really want just to start something. I've always, like, this has been part of my story too. Just start, man. Just start.
You don't hesitate. Find a few idols that you look up to, kind of, like go after them, see how they do things, and then just start. Like there's
because you can make a million excuses. That's what
yeah. There's only so much planning and sitting in a room that you can do. Just get out there and do it.
And you'll improve. You'll improve. Like when you start putting things out, you saw this, man. As soon as you put something out, people will start, maybe at first be hesitant, but eventually they're going to start realizing what you're doing, and then start getting curious. Like, Simon, what are you doing here? What is this picture? Oh, and eventually when you build that traction, you won't even have to go to people anymore. They'll come to, like, as you're already witnessing, people will come to you and say, hey man, we'd love to collaborate with you.
Once you put your content out there and it's worthwhile, people will reach out to you, man. They will. One of the greatest compliments I've ever received in my life.
Right.
It was towards my photos, but it was indirectly towards it. But let's say your friend goes on vacation, and you're just kind of like, hey man, have a great time. That's it. That's it. Have a good time. Tell me stories once you're back and everything. It's gotten to a point now that when I go on vacation or when I travel, like, people reach out to me like, yo, that's awesome. I can't wait for the content you're about to post. Like, you're someone I genuinely get excited about when you travel. Like, you always post awesome stuff. Your stories are cool. And then once you get back, your photos are awesome. One of the biggest, like, pumps me up all the time whenever my friends say it. But
and I have to say, my favorite one was the one actually in the desert when you were in Morocco. One where I think you're riding on camels.
Yeah.
But the other one was at night with all the stars and stuff.
Oh yeah.
I actually put that on my as my desktop.
Oh damn! Oh man, that means the world.
So, it was also on my phone. No joke. So,
I'm trying to take over everyone's wallpaper,
everyone's
on their phones and the desktops. That's the real deal at the end of the day.
So, Sai, look, I do this with every guest.
Yeah.
Loved everything you've shared. I'm sure a lot of people found this super valuable. One tip or piece of advice. It doesn't have to be one. It could be two or three, whatever. Something that you leave everyone watching this right now. What's that one sort of gem that you can leave us with?
Man, just if you're gonna do any work, just completely stay consistent with it. Like literally like on a weekly basis, like keep delivering everything, whether it's content, whether it's work, whether it's reaching out to clients, whether if you're in sales or anything like that, just keep staying consistent with your craft and everything like that. You know, have idols that you look after, but it's one great thing that's happened to me in my life, and I've been blessed with it. But my idols are the people I'm surrounded by, the Emilys, the Benits, the Georges, the Kathleens, whatever. I'm more than thankful to say that the people I look up to are my friends, the people that I see every day and talk to every day. So have idols that you look up to, but you know, surround yourself with people that'll help you get there. And man, if you love something, do it. Just do it.
Shia LaBeouf style. Just go crazy and
just do it. Just do it. And just, yeah, look at that. Like I'm shooting. I didn't mention this earlier, but like one of my clients as an automotive, one of my big clients right now in Toronto is this dealer at Aston Martin Toronto, and we're like best of friends now. And
crazy.
He brings me to all these automotive shoots and all that kind of stuff now. And going back to Morocco, when I went there, I actually had a tour. One of our desert tours was completely free because I pitched like photos to them, and all these opportunities start presenting themselves to you. My friend Emily, she's shooting with several influencers now. People just reach out to her now, and yeah, once you find something you love, you're doing it enough, you're doing it consistently. Because you're doing it consistently, you're growing and growing and growing, and you're surrounding yourself with the right community and stuff. The sky's the limit, man. That's it. It just takes off, my friend. Yeah.
Honestly, I know I've said this many times on and off the camera, but you have an incredible story, man.
Yeah,
and
thanks, man.
I've always been the type that like I'll go super bullish on my friends.
I
want you to succeed, and you know,
for sure, man.
I want you, man. I want you to go all the way, dude. And I'll say this on record now. And you can quote me. Sayem Reza is going to be the next biggest photographer in the world. All right, Ty.
Thanks,
always a pleasure, man.
Thanks, man.
One of the things too, guys. Before we sort of end this, you can find Sayem. So I posted his Instagram, LinkedIn, his website, and everything else you'll find below, as well as the description. Please reach out to him. He is a phenomenal dude, and we wish him the best success. So thanks,
buddy.